Danny Trejo is one of Hollywood's most recognizable faces, known for playing hardened criminals, villains, and intimidating figures across hundreds of films and television shows. His rugged appearance, marked by deep scars, tattoos, and a piercing stare, made him the perfect choice for roles that demanded danger and intensity. But behind that unforgettable image lies a story far more complex, painful, and inspiring than most people ever realize. In 2010, Danny quietly faced one of the most terrifying battles of his life when doctors discovered a tumor on his liver the size of a fist. It was a moment that could have ended everything, yet he chose to tell almost no one. He feared that if Hollywood knew he was sick, the roles would stop coming. He continued working, hiding his pain behind the same tough persona audiences had come to expect. Nearly a decade later, in 2019, the world saw a very different side of him when he rushed into a flipped car after a violent crash and helped rescue a trapped child. The same man who once lived a life of crime was now risking his life to save someone else. Danny Trejo was born on May 16, 1944, in Maywood, California, and from the beginning, his life was surrounded by tension and secrecy. His mother, Dolores, was married to another man who was away fighting in World War II when she became pregnant after meeting Dionisio Trejo. This truth was not something the family openly accepted, and instead of forgiveness, it created an atmosphere of shame and silence that followed Danny throughout his early years. He grew up feeling like a reminder of something people wished to forget. His childhood quickly became even more unstable when his father became a wanted man after stabbing someone in Los Angeles. The family fled to San Antonio, Texas, living in fear and constantly watching their surroundings. After about a year, they returned to Los Angeles, where his father turned himself in. For Danny, this early experience planted a dangerous lesson that violence and running from consequences were part of life. At the age of 5, his life took another painful turn after a minor accident where he sprained his arm. His father used it as an excuse to separate him from his mother, and what followed was not a temporary distance, but a 16-year separation. From 1949 to 1965, Danny grew up without seeing his mother or sister. Those years, which should have been filled with comfort and guidance, instead became a time of isolation and emotional hardship. He lived in a cramped household with relatives, learning to stay quiet and avoid attention. His father remained a constant source of fear, often acting violently without reason. By the age of 7, Danny had already experienced abuse that made no sense to him. Like many children in such situations, he tried to justify it by convincing himself he must have done something wrong because accepting random cruelty was too overwhelming for a child to understand. Amid all this darkness, there was one small source of kindness. His stepmother, Alice, offered moments of warmth and compassion. She could not stop the abuse, but she provided brief glimpses of care that stayed with him. Those moments became important later in life, reminding him that kindness existed even in the harshest environments. However, the deeper issues remained. Cut off from his mother, surrounded by violence, and raised in a culture where toughness was valued above all else, Danny became vulnerable to the wrong influences. That influence came in the form of his uncle Gilbert, who was only 6 years older than him and felt more like an older brother than a guardian. When Danny was just 8 years old, Gilbert introduced him to marijuana. It didn't feel like a warning, it felt like acceptance. For a child starved of connection, that feeling was powerful. By the time he was 12, things escalated even further when he demanded to try heroin after catching Gilbert using it. The experience nearly killed him as he overdosed the very first time. From that point on, his path became darker. He began drinking heavily and assisting in drug-related activities. He carried drugs, collected money, and slowly became part of a criminal lifestyle. At the same time, Gilbert trained him to fight through harsh and brutal methods. Boxing became less about sport and more about survival, shaping him into someone who could endure pain without showing weakness. As he entered his teenage years, the violence spilled into the streets. Fights turned into robberies, and robberies became more serious crimes. He built a reputation based on fear, understanding that being seen as dangerous could keep him alive. Eventually, this lifestyle caught up with him, and in 1965, at the age of 21, he was arrested for selling drugs to undercover agents. Whether he claimed innocence or not, the result was the same, a prison sentence that would change his life forever. Inside prison, Danny adapted quickly. He used fear as a tool and became deeply involved in the environment around him. But something unexpected also happened. His childhood training in boxing gave him an advantage, and he became a champion boxer within the prison system, earning respect and a level of protection that helped him survive. Prison life was brutal, with constant violence and an unspoken code of silence. He witnessed horrifying scenes that stayed with him long after his release. Yet even in that environment, strange moments occurred, like organized boxing matches that offered a temporary escape from the harsh reality. One of the most unusual encounters of his life also happened during this time, when he met a young man who appeared weak and insignificant. That man was Charles Manson. At the time, he saw him as someone who needed protection. Years later, when Manson became infamous for shocking crimes, the memory took on a chilling meaning. In 1968, during a prison riot, Danny's life came dangerously close to ending. In the chaos, he threw a rock that accidentally struck a guard. This single moment placed him in serious legal trouble, with the possibility of facing the death penalty. He was placed in solitary confinement for months, left alone with his thoughts and fear, unsure if he would survive. In that isolation, something inside him changed. Facing the possibility of death forced him to reflect deeply on his life. He made a promise that if he survived, he would dedicate his life to helping others instead of continuing down the same destructive path. When the charges against him were eventually dropped for lack of evidence, he saw it as a second chance. After his release in 1969, Danny committed himself to change. He became involved in recovery programs and worked as a drug counselor, helping others escape addiction and crime. This new purpose gave his life direction and meaning, something he had never truly experienced before. Years later, in 1985, a simple act of helping someone led him into an entirely new world. While assisting a young man struggling with drugs, he found himself on a movie set. His authentic appearance caught the attention of the crew, and he was offered a small role. That opportunity became the beginning of a long and successful acting career. From that moment on, Danny built his name for himself in Hollywood, appearing in hundreds of films and television shows. He often played villains and tough characters, but behind the scenes, he remained committed to helping others, never forgetting the promise he made during his darkest moment. In 2010, his battle with liver cancer tested him once again. The treatment was intense and frightening, but he endured it quietly, determined not to let it define him or end his career. When he finally recovered, it gave him a deeper appreciation for life and a stronger sense of purpose. In 2019, his actions during a car accident revealed the true measure of the man he had become. Without hesitation, he risked his own safety to save a trapped child, showing courage not as an actor, but as a human being. It wasn't about recognition or praise, it was simply the right thing to do. Beyond acting, he also built businesses that reflected his values, creating opportunities for people who needed second chances just like he once did. His journey from a troubled childhood to a respected figure in Hollywood is not just a story of survival, but a story of transformation. Danny Trejo's life proves that no matter how far someone falls, change is always possible.
His story is a powerful reminder that even in the darkest circumstances, there is always a chance to rebuild, to grow, and to become something greater than the past.